Remember? Remember the 5th of November? Gunpowder, treason, and plot. You probably know that rhyme, right?
Mm-hmm. It definitely conjures up images, fireworks, bonfires, all across the UK.
Exactly. But behind all that light and noise, there's a really dark and pretty dramatic story.
Oh, absolutely.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into the real history behind Guy Fawkes Night. We're looking at the gunpowder plot of 1605.
And it was an incredibly audacious plan, wasn't it? A failed attempt, yes, but the goal was huge. Blow up Parliament, assassinate the king.
The stakes couldn't have been higher.
Not really, no.
Yeah.
So our mission today, if you like, is to unpack all that. Look at the origins, the people involved, the lasting impact of a night that honestly almost changed British history forever.
Yeah, helping you understand why this particular story, this one event, still kind of echoes today.
Right.
So to really get it, we need to step back a bit to England in the early 17th century.
Yeah, you really do, because it wasn't just general unease. England was, well, it was practically a powder keg of religious tension.
Still dealing with the fallout from the Protestant Reformation.
Deeply. So after Queen Elizabeth I, who was Protestant, English Catholics were, really hoping for a break.
They thought the new king, James I, might ease up on the harsh laws against them.
Exactly. And ironically, his own mother, Mary, Queen of Scots, was Catholic, so there was this real sense of hope, maybe misplaced hope.
But James I didn't deliver on that hope, did he?
Not at all. In fact, quite the opposite. He basically doubled down on the Protestant policies. He even seemed to intensify the persecution in some ways.
Like bringing back those heavy fines for not attending Anglican services? The recusancy fines?
Precisely. That was a clear signal. It completely dashed their hopes and, well, it turned that hope into deep resentment. It really set the stage for something more radical.
And that's where Robert Catesby comes in.
Yeah.
Fueled by that resentment.
Absolutely. Catesby is sort of the central figure here, a very charismatic Catholic nobleman, apparently quite persuasive.
And he was determined to, overthrow the whole Protestant system?
Pretty much. He gathered this small, very tight-knit group, people he trusted implicitly.
Thomas Percy, Thomas Wintour, John Wright. Names maybe less known now.
Right, but crucial to the plot. And then, of course, the most famous name.
Guy Fawkes.
Guy Fawkes, the man associated with the whole thing, even though Catesby was the leader.
So what was their actual plan? The big goal?
It was audacious, really terrifyingly simple in concept. Blow up the House of Lords.
During the state opening of Parliament.
Yeah.
November 5th, 1605.
Exactly. The timing was key. They wanted everyone there.
Not just an assassination then. This was bigger.
Oh, much bigger. The explosion was meant to kill King James, his family, most of the senior government officials, the bishops, the judges, everyone important.
Wow. Just wipe the slate clean.
That was the idea. Create a power vacuum, spark a Catholic uprising in the Midlands, and then install a Catholic monarch, maybe James's young daughter Elizabeth, under a Catholic protector.
It's just staggering, the sheer scale of what they intended.
It really is. Total regime change through one massive act of violence.
And the man they picked to actually light the fuse, Guy Fawkes.
Yeah.
He wasn't just some random recruit, was he?
No, not at all. Fawkes was crucial because of his background. He was a soldier.
Right. He'd fought for Catholic Spain against the Protestant Dutch.
Exactly, in the 80 Years' War. So he had real military experience and, importantly, experience with explosives, gunpowder. He knew what he was doing.
That makes sense. He was the technical expert.
You could say that. The
Wow.
demolitions guy. So under a fake name, John Johnson, I think it was,
Right.
he rented a cellar, or rather an undercroft, right beneath the House of Lords, prime location.
And started filling it with gunpowder.
36 barrels. 36. An enormous quantity. More than enough, they calculated, to obliterate the entire building and everyone in it.
Just waiting there. Under the heart of government. It's quite the image.
A ticking time bomb. Quite literally. But their secret wasn't going to stay secret.
Ah, yes. This is the crucial turning point, isn't it? How does something planned in such secrecy start to leak?
It all hinges on a single piece of paper. A mysterious, anonymous letter.
Delivered to whom?
To Lord Monteagle. Now, Monteagle was a Catholic nobleman, but also seen as loyal to the crown.
Tricky position.
Very. The letter basically warned him, very cryptically, to stay away from Parliament on November 5th. They shall receive a terrible blow. That kind of language.
And Monteagle didn't just ignore it.
No, he took it seriously. Whether out of loyalty or perhaps fear or maybe a bit of both, he passed it up the chain. It eventually reached Robert Cecil, the king's chief minister.
And the authorities started putting two and two together.
Well, they were cautious at first,
Right.
but the warning was specific enough about the date and place. So in the very early hours of November 5th, they decided to conduct a search.
Not just a routine check.
No, a proper search of the Parliament cellars. And down there, in the undercroft,
They find him? Guy Fawkes.
standing guard, with the wood concealing the barrels of gunpowder, slow matches, everything ready.
Caught red-handed, basically. So arrest was immediate, I assume.
Oh, yes, instantly arrested. And then came the interrogation.
Which involved torture, right. That was standard practice then for treason.
It was, unfortunately. Under the king's direct warrant, Fawkes was subjected to torture on the rack. Initially, he held out, giving only his alias.
But eventually.
Eventually, the pain became unbearable. He broke, he confessed to the plot, and, crucially, started naming his co-conspirators.
So the whole network started to unravel.
Mm.
What happened to Catesby and the others?
Once the news broke, they fled London, trying to ignite that Catholic uprising they'd hoped for. But it fizzled out. No one joined them.
They were on the run.
Hunted men. The sheriff cornered Catesby, Percy, and a couple of others at Holbeach House in Staffordshire. There was a shootout. Catesby and Percy were killed.
And the ones captured.
They were brought back to London, put on trial, a show trial, really. The verdict was never in doubt, and then executed.
The execution method was particularly brutal, wasn't it?
Horrific. Hanged, drawn, and quartered. A gruesome public spectacle designed to deter anyone else from even thinking about treason. It sent a very clear message.
So the plot fails spectacularly. The conspirators meet a grim end. What are the immediate consequences of all this? How does it change things?
Well, the most immediate thing is a massive wave of anti-Catholic feeling. Any lingering hopes Catholics had for tolerance were just gone.
So the laws against them got even tougher.
Much tougher. Restrictions on their lives, their property, their ability to practice their faith, it all intensified. The plot became this powerful symbol justifying persecution for decades, even centuries.
And it also became a symbol of national survival. Like the nation dodged a bullet.
Exactly. A sense of divine deliverance almost. That God had saved the Protestant king in Parliament, and Parliament acted very quickly on that.
Declaring November 5th a holiday.
A public day of Thanksgiving, mandated by law. People were required really to celebrate the king's escape with bonfires, sermons, bell ringing.
And that's the origin of burning the guy, the effigies.
Pretty much, yeah. Early on, effigies of the Pope were often burned, but over time, Guy Fawkes, the man caught with the gunpowder, became the focus. Burning the guy became the central tradition.
So that solemn day of Thanksgiving gradually morphs
into Guy Fawkes Night, or Bonfire Night as we know it. It became less about the specific religious deliverance and more, well, a popular folk festival.
a mix of political history and just community celebration with fireworks.
Right. That blend of remembering the plot, celebrating the state's victory, but also just having a big party. It's a fascinating evolution.
But looking beyond the history, beyond the bonfires and fireworks, does this event still resonate today? Why should we still care about a failed plot from over 400 years ago?
I think it does, definitely. On one level, it's a stark reminder, isn't it, about what can happen when you have that toxic mix of deep religious intolerance, political repression.
And people feeling they have no peaceful way to change things.
Exactly. When people feel cornered, desperate, radicalization can take hold. And the plot shows how that can lead to, well, extreme violence aimed right at the heart of power.
It's also interesting how Guy Fawkes himself has become this weird, detached symbol.
Completely detached from the original Catholic context, often. You see that mask, especially after the movie V for Vendetta.
Right, the stylized Guy Fawkes mask.
It's become this global symbol of, what, anti-establishment protest, rebellion against authority, against tyranny, which is ironic given his original goals were essentially theocratic.
Yeah, a very different kind of tyranny, perhaps.
Perhaps. So the symbol has taken on a life entirely of its own, far removed from the historical Guy Fawkes.
So when you strip away the modern symbolism, the fireworks, what's the real core of this story?
For me, it's not really a simple tale of heroes and villains. It's about desperation. It's about faith, maybe twisted faith, driven to an absolute extreme.
And the terrifying power of ideas. How they can motivate people to do, well, almost anything.
Precisely. It shows how close things can get to complete chaos, how fragile order can sometimes be when those kinds of explosive pressures build up.
So as we wrap this up, maybe the next time you hear those fireworks on November 5th, it's worth remembering it's not just a party.
Not just the celebration, no. It commemorates a moment of near catastrophe, a profound threat that almost succeeded.
Britain really did come incredibly close to a violent revolution, didn't it? An act of terror on a massive scale.
One of the closest calls in its history, arguably, and it was all apparently foiled by one single anonymous letter.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. Just pause for a moment and consider, what if that letter had never been sent? Or never reached the right person?
What different path might history have taken? How different might Britain and maybe even the world look today?
A sobering thought to leave you with.